These are awards that we were asked to make for the Gaslight Theatre. The Gaslight is a local community theater here in Enid that's really active. It's been around for many years, and as part of their annual tradition, they do an award show called the Charlie Awards. Every year they have trophies, and this year they had us make some little follow spots as the trophies. I made awards for the Charlies once before that were very different, and these were fun just to be able to do something new. So the body of this follow spot is actually a piece of EMT conduit, metal conduit, that we cut to length and trued up the ends here in the lathe and then polished. You can see Rowan doing some polishing and then me doing a little more on the lathe. We drilled a hole on either side that this yoke that supports the barrel of this spotlight, you'll see down in a little bit, attaches to, and then threaded those holes with, I believe, 632 threaded, little screws. The screws themselves needed to be a pretty specific length, so it held the flashlight inside the barrel exactly where it needed to be. And so I made this little jig on the mill that would let me put the screws I could get from Lowe's that were, I think, half an inch, and then grind them down to exactly the length we needed. It worked really well. I would definitely do that again. Here you see me starting to work on the yoke, the part that supports the barrel. And this is actually a copper PEX crimp ring. It was the best way I could find to get this copper detail. They were cheap and easy and thick enough to work with. So we cut the copper PEX ring and then kind of unfold it into a U shape. Eventually we'll remove all this black to make them look, pretty. But once we got them into this U shape, then over to the mill, I made this fixture, you'll see here in just a sec, to drill the hole on the bottom and the sides. So here's drilling the hole on the bottom, and this mill, it's a small mill, but it works great for our purposes, and even though I'm blocking it with my arm, you can get that we're drilling a hole in the bottom, and then over on the side, right there, drilling the holes for the side where the screw or little bolt will go through and into the barrel that holds the flashlight. Copper's kind of difficult to work with. It's so soft. You have to be careful how you hold it. So having a little fixture on the mill made it way easy. Here I'm rounding over the corners and then polishing off some of that black. Getting the bottom of the yoke attached, it made sense to go ahead and tap that hole. It's a 1024 thread. So the threaded rod that holds it all together can not just go through the yoke, but attach kind of better to the yoke. Here, these are pieces of copper plumbing pipe, and this is Stephanie who's rolling them out to make them straighter. We also then, before we put it all together, polished on just a buffing wheel with some polishing compound these copper pieces so they're nice and shiny. So here is the yoke and the stand subassembly. You can see I'm threading the rod into that threaded hole in the yoke and then using a little bit of Loctite to hold the nut on top, and then because the yoke's threaded too, we can twist them together as kind of like a jam nut, and that holds it nicely in place, so when it pivots, it's not pivoting there, it's pivoting down below. The barrels needed a little bit of attention just to be more interesting, and I found these little plumbing fittings, cut them in half, and used some CA glue, cyanoacrylate glue, and you'll see just a couple little squirts of an accelerator, a kicker, to get it to set quickly. And that did a really good job of holding these copper details on top of the barrels. Corey, while I was doing a lot of this work, was prepping the bases. We had all this leftover red cedar from the entrance that we did for the atelier space here last year. And this material is beautiful, but it just wasn't big enough for what we were doing then. We saved all of it, and this is a perfect use for it because I just think cedar's so pretty. So Corey milled it all down to a consistent thickness and ran it through the drum sander to get it all nice and smooth, and then had to do lots of sanding after they were cut to size. Corey also put a chamfer around all the edges and a slot to hold the nameplate. You can see Rowan working in the background, getting everything laid out on the shop bot so we can actually cut the nameplates. The nameplates were etched here we are into these anodized aluminum plates that I found online using a little diamond etcher on the shop bot, and they came out really clean. I also like they were bigger than a lot of plates are for plaques or awards, just so you can read it easier. Here Corey is cutting a recess on the bottom of the cedar for the nut that holds the threaded rod together. Also drilled a hole through the top all the way through for the threaded rod, and a little slightly bigger hole not all the way through from the top for the shoulder of the copper to set onto. So once we had all these sub-assemblies done, Corey and I spent time, a couple hours, just putting it all together, getting everything screwed together, Loctited together. How's it going, Corey?
Going good. Assembling pieces.
It's going pretty well. And it really did go pretty well. The whole assembling 38 of these only took a couple hours, and I gotta say, they turned out great. We did a paste wax on the base, and I think they're really pretty. So the flashlights get inserted and held in with the same screws that hold that yoke on. That's the reason it was so important to get them to that specific length. And it also means you can pull the flashlight out to swap out batteries if you need to. All in all, I think they're adorable. They turned out great.
Corey would be really annoyed with me if I didn't get footage for the video of them actually here.